Rodney James Alcala was the kind of man who could walk into a room and charm just about anyone. Tall, lean, with dark curly hair and an intense gaze, he spoke in a smooth, intelligent tone that gave off the aura of a cultured artist. He claimed to be a professional photographer. He quoted philosophy. He'd studied film. People described him as charismatic, funny, confident. But none of them knew that behind the composed exterior was a predator so calculating, so sadistic, and so terrifyingly methodical that some investigators would later say he could rival Ted Bundy in depravity. Born in San Antonio, Texas, in 1943, Alcala's early life offered no obvious signs of the monster he would become. After his father abandoned the family, his mother moved them to Los Angeles. He seemed like a bright, artistic boy with a promising future. He joined the Army at 17 and served honorably, until a nervous breakdown in 1964 led to a diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder. He was discharged following the nervous breakdown and allegations of sexual misconduct. From that point on, the man who returned to civilian life was darker, colder, and more detached from human empathy. But he didn't wear that darkness openly. Rodney Alcala wrapped it in charm and intellect. He was always watching, always studying his prey. His first known attack came in 1968. An 8-year-old girl named Tali Shapiro was walking to school in Hollywood when Alcala pulled over beside her. He convinced her to get in his car. A witness who saw the exchange sensed something was wrong and followed them, calling police along the way. By the time officers arrived at Alcala's apartment, the door was open, but the scene inside was horrific. Tali lay on the kitchen floor, raped, beaten, and strangled with a metal bar. She was still alive, barely. Alcala had fled out the back door. A manhunt began, but he had already vanished. He reappeared on the other side of the country under a fake name, John Berger. Enrolling in New York University's film school, he studied under Roman Polanski. He told everyone he was a photographer. It was in New York that he truly began to hone his hunting methods. He'd approach women, some adults, some teenage girls, and ask if he could photograph them. He said he worked with modeling agencies. Many agreed. What followed for some was unimaginable violence. The photos he took would later be discovered, hundreds of them. Some so disturbing the police couldn't release them publicly. Some of the women have never been identified. In 1971, 2 children at an arts camp in New Hampshire recognized Alcala from an FBI poster. He was arrested and extradited to California. But even though he was linked to the Tali Shapiro assault, the girl's family had moved to Mexico and declined to return for the trial. Without her testimony, prosecutors had to offer a plea deal. Alcala served just 34 months for assault. When he was released, psychiatrists warned that he was still highly dangerous. But the justice system ignored the warnings. He was paroled, and the moment he was free, he began killing. In the years that followed, young women began to disappear in California. Their bodies were later found, strangled, sexually assaulted, sometimes posed like dolls. Georgia Wickstead, Jill Barcombe, Charlotte Lamb, Jill Parenteau. Each of them had crossed paths with a man who's offered to photograph them. Each of them died by strangulation. But the full scale of Alcala's crimes wasn't known, not even close. In 1978, he made a bizarre move. He applied to be a contestant on the hit TV show The Dating Game. At the time, background checks were lax. The producers saw a handsome man with a disarming smile and a confident swagger. He was cast on the show, while already a convicted sex offender and suspected murderer. Millions of Americans watched as Rodney Alcala joked, flirted, and laughed with Bachelorette Cheryl Bradshaw. He introduced himself as a photographer and world traveler. Throughout the episode, Alcala enthusiastically responds to the Bachelorette's suggestive questions. He competed against 2 other men in a series of innuendo-laced questions, and he won. But Cheryl never went on the date. According to her, something about him made her skin crawl and she found him weird. She later said he was creepy and that her instincts told her to stay away. At the time the episode aired, Alcala had already murdered multiple women. It was one of the most surreal moments in true crime history. A serial killer on national television, charming the public while actively prowling for new victims. His downfall began in 1979 with the disappearance of 12-year-old Robin Samsoe from Huntington Beach, California. She had been on her way to ballet class when she vanished. Her remains were found nearly 2 weeks later in a remote mountain ravine. Witnesses described a man taking pictures of her at the beach, Rodney Alcala. Police obtained a warrant and searched his storage locker. What they found was chilling. Earrings that belonged to Robin. Hundreds of photographs of women and girls, and the items he kept as trophies. Small, personal things stolen from the dead. He was arrested and charged with Robin's kidnapping and murder. The trial was a media sensation. In 1980, he was convicted and sentenced to death. But legal appeals dragged the case out for decades. The conviction was reversed in 1984 by the California Supreme Court. The court said the case had been tainted by evidence of Mr. Alcala's prior crimes, which had not been introduced at trial. He was granted a new trial. In 1986, he was sentenced to death again for Robin's murder before a federal appeals court overturned the sentence in 2003 and granted him another new trial. His verdict was overturned not once but twice on technicalities and issues with jury instructions. Each time, Alcala was retried. Each time more evidence was added, including DNA links to other victims. Investigators eventually used DNA to link Mr. Alcala to 4 other homicides, which led to charges that he had murdered Jill Barcombe, 18, and Georgia Wickstead, 27, in 1977, Charlotte Lamb, 32, in 1978, and Jill Parenteau, 21, in 1979. In 2010, he was finally tried for 5 California murders. He acted as his own attorney. What happened in that courtroom defied belief. Alcala spoke in a flat, robotic tone. He played clips of himself on the dating game to the jury, as if still trying to win their favor. He questioned witnesses with bizarre detachment. At one point, he asked himself questions out loud in a lawyer voice, then answered in his normal voice, effectively interviewing himself in front of the stunned courtroom. It wasn't just odd, it was terrifying. A glimpse into the warped mind of a man completely devoid of remorse. That trial resulted in another death sentence, but Alcala's story didn't end there. Investigators continued to examine the evidence, especially the photos. More victims emerged. In 2012, he was extradited to New York and pleaded guilty to the murders of Cornelia Crilly and Ellen Hover, crimes that had gone unsolved for nearly 40 years. Cornelia, a flight attendant, was raped and strangled in her apartment in 1971. Ellen Hover, the daughter of a Hollywood nightclub owner, vanished in 1977. Alcala had signed into her building the night she disappeared. In 2013, he was sentenced to 25 years to life. At the sentencing in New York State Supreme Court in Manhattan, Justice Bonnie G. Whitner sobbed as Mr. Alcala's violent crimes were recounted. "This kind of case is something I've never experienced. Hope to never again," she said. Still, the number of victims remains uncertain. Some FBI investigators believe he may have murdered over 100 people, perhaps as many as 130. In 2010, the Huntington Beach Police Department released over 100 of the photos found in Alcala's storage locker, asking the public for help identifying the women and children. Some were identified and confirmed to be alive. Others were identified as missing persons who were never seen again. The rest remain unknown, unclaimed, faces frozen in time, captured by a killer. Alcala was never able or willing to give answers. He died in prison on July 24, 2021, at age 77, from natural causes. He never confessed, he never showed regret, and he never explained why. His crimes live on in case files, interviews, and thousands of photographs, and his legacy is one of monstrous duality. A man who smiled and joked on TV while hiding the truth that he was a predator who hunted young women and girls with cold precision. Alcala's story shows us that evil doesn't always snarl and bare its teeth. Sometimes it smiles, sometimes it's well-dressed, sometimes it wins a dating show. The most terrifying monsters are the ones who know how to wear a mask, and Rodney Alcala wore his better than most. If you found this story as disturbing and haunting as we did, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another deep dive into the world's most chilling true crime cases. As always, stay curious and stay safe.